I see my last video caught a lot of attention, which was excellent. A lot more attention and a lot more focus needs to be put on this cult. I'm speaking, of course, of Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, all those other ones. Narcotics Anonymous is just your off-brand cereal at the grocery store. Yeah, it looks a little different, but it's the exact same thing. One of the backlashes I got was, well, it helps just 5% of people. Why not just leave it at that? Why be mean to these people? Well, I'm not running for politically correct principle this year, so I don't have to worry about hurting other people's feelings or pretending to like people that I don't. You can't just leave it, I can't just leave it at that 5%, because it very clearly and obviously is hurting the other 95%. I can't leave it at just helping 5%, because every single morning I drive past the Harford County Sheriff's Board, and you can see the death toll and the overdose increase every single day. I can't just leave it at the 5%, because when I wake up in the morning, I turn on the news and I see a police officer was gunned down and killed in Texas because of a drug inspection. And this disgusting cult say that the shooter was a victim because he was a pawn of his disease. I can't just leave it at the 5%, because should my daughter ever have to go through this, I'd be absolutely terrified if AA was the only solution. I'd be absolutely terrified of losing my daughter. Where I get these statistics from, all you'd have to do is pick up a book called The Sober Truth. The Sober Truth. Read the book. Don't just take my word for these things. That'd be defeating the purpose. Look into these things. Read the book called The Sober Truth. It'll show you how there literally are times and periods where the suicide rate in these rooms was higher than the success rate. I want to start by getting rid of the stipulation that AA is not a cult. Someone brought up a point, she thought of her own characteristics of a cult. Her first point was, we have no leader. There's no leader. There's leaders in cults. There's no leader here. You guys do have a leader. His name is Bill Wilson. He's been dead for years, and you people still worship him. Some members even say he was the reincarnation of Jesus Christ himself. Bill Wilson is the man that made AA's Bible, the big book, this garbage that these people worship. There are members that'll say, I'm a real Christian, I'm a real Jew, real Muslim, that can name you every single chapter of this book, but can't name you one verse from the Bible. Can't name you one verse from the Quran, but can name every single word, every single chapter of this book. This book was written by a man that had his spiritual awakening while on an LSD trip. This book was written by a man that was a known adulterer. Your leader, Bill Wilson, his house is literally a shrine that people go to visit, that they have literally turned into a shrine. This book was written by garbage and shows today. She also brought up, you're not harmed for leaving the cult. You are harmed for leaving the cult. Should you leave the cult, you will be badgered and harassed by other members that automatically assume that you're drunk, or you must be a shitbag and destroying your family's life because you're not in here in these rooms. You're only hurting people because you're not here in these rooms. They threaten you to stay in the rooms with your little slogans like, the repercussions for leaving this program, for leaving AA, is institutions, death, and prisons. They threaten you with that every single meeting. She also brought up, there's no preoccupation with money. I simply say, go to one of the CEOs of one of these big rehab enterprises, and I'm sure they'll have a different story. She also brought up forced to socialize within the program. This program teaches you to call yourself an alcoholic, to call yourself a drug addict. Hi, my name's Kevin, I'm a drug addict. Every single meeting you go to, they teach you to be a proud alcoholic, to say your struggles and what you did to your family is a show of strength. But as soon as you leave these rooms and you meet people that normal, rational thinking people that see a completely opposite of drug abuse and drug addicts as something negative, which it should be, you get offended and you pull away from rational thinking people, and you're pulled into this cult. It's a cult. This garbage of a book. To say that this is a non-religious program, in one of the very first chapters of this book, it says it's a non-religious program, right? Well, it even has a chapter for the agnostic. It has a whole chapter in this book for the agnostic, for someone that wants to rationally go through this. Well, the chapter to the agnostic teaches you that you should stop being agnostic, and that the only way you'll find sobriety is through a God. This book is filled with paradoxes and oxymorons and just asinine statements. This isn't a solution, people. This is a joke. This book is garbage and an absolute joke. Founded on a man that was absolute garbage. And his teachings still show today. It gives you these excuses of your bad behavior, calling it a disease and saying it's not your fault, that you had no control, that it just gives you this opportunity to pawn off your bad behavior. I'll be the first to tell you, I'm 25. My generation is nothing but a bunch of victims that need to be victimized for absolutely everything. And this AA, this cult, is a great way to pawn your problems off on everyone else. That it's your family's fault. They were enablers. They enabled you to do this. Everything but your fault. It has this cloud over it that says that they should have this free pass from the legal system because it's a disease, because they couldn't control what they did, so they should deserve a free pass. And they're literally getting away with this with these drug courts that obviously aren't working. They get away with this by these laws that are being changed from no longer, if someone overdoses and the police show up with paramedics, that no one can be charged there because they called the paramedics, and no one can be charged. It's just teaching these people that they can overdose, and they can overdose with no repercussions. And you can be in this drug environment, and should the police be called, there's still no repercussions. Any of my friends that are paramedics or firefighters have to see what I'm talking about here. That these people can continuously overdose and have no repercussions for it whatsoever. Or the people that were around when he overdosed, they will not get in trouble. It's just teaching these people that it's okay. It's a disease. It's not your fault. I also got the excuses. Well, there's bad people everywhere. These things happen everywhere, which I'll agree with. I won't agree with how confined and how much it goes on in a confined spot. But what does a real organization do when they have problems like this, when they have this disgusting behavior like rapes and sexual assault? They start implementing rules and regulations to phase that out, to control that. What does AA and the off-brand cereals do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They'll complain all day that, oh yeah, we got these problems in the room, but it happens everywhere. Pawning these, making excuses. But what does AA do to stop the amount of rapes and sexual assaults? And God knows how many keep going on with the cowardice term anonymity. The women that actually speak out, the women that have been raped in these rooms and speak out, the families of these families come out and speak against AA because their child was murdered by other members in these rooms. Those are brave women. A woman that can come out and fight against this. These are brave women. The women that defend this program and defend that behavior are hypocritical trash. That's all they are. That's all they are. Like I said in the last video, I do believe there's good people in these rooms. I believe there's good people in these rooms that are just unaware of the problems they're causing. Because they've been told a lie so long that it's stuck with them. AA and this cult, AA the cult, it'll make good people say and do nasty and terrible things. It'll make bad people worse. It'll make intelligent people say and do stupid things. It's this cloud that hangs over the program. The asinine teachings of of a man that had a spiritual awakening on an LSD trip. They'll say, when it comes to the drug courts and things like that, they'll also say, well, we don't promote that. We don't like them being in. We don't like people being forced in here either. Again, what are you doing about it? What do you do to stop the court system from pushing these people into your meetings? Absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. And to get back on doing absolutely nothing about the rapes and things like that in the rooms, you'll find on NA Daytona that communities actually started pushing for some kind of protection of members being sexually raped. And AA and NA denied it. They wouldn't allow it. They wouldn't allow the protection of their members. Some of the sayings in this are, when you look at the crime rate that increase around these rooms, when you look at the suicide rates that increase around these rooms, when you look at all these things, all you have to do is dig into this program and you'll see why all these things happen. As I said in the last video, what brighter way to help a drunk drug addict off the side of the streets than to stick him in a room full of people relapsing, talking about drugs 24/7? How is that gonna help him get sober? That might be part of your relapse rate. I don't like seeing children suffer more than they should while going through drug abuse. I don't like seeing children dying almost daily, more than daily, around the world. Multiple people dying around the world because of drug abuse. I don't like seeing this. I don't like seeing my generation becoming weaker and weaker when it comes to drug abuse. These people in the rooms, they're so narcissistic and needy and demanding for self-respect that the court systems have to follow what we want, that you and everyone else needs to respect us because we're drug addicts and because of what we went through. Some of these members have the audacity to say that their disease is worse than cancer, that their disease of addiction is a tier higher than cancer. It's worse. We go through worse because our disease is chronic and never-ending and only gets worse as it progresses. That's why we're stronger than cancer patients. They demand this self-respect, that we should respect them because they're drug addicts and they've been through more than us. And I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about normal, rational thinking people. That I demand your respect because I was a drug addict and I had to do this and this and this. Well, actually, we don't have to respect you. And neither should anyone else. This cult. This cult is only hurting the communities that it surrounds. It's bringing more criminals into a community. It's bringing more drug addicts into a community. It doesn't take a rocket scientist 20 years in these rooms to see this. The best thing AA has come up with for the rapes and the murders and things like that, let's talk specifically about the rapes. The best thing AA and these programs have come up with is for your sponsor to say, it's not suggested that you get into a relationship in your first year. Doesn't say anything about having sex with one another. Doesn't say anything about, hey, there's a lot of predators in these rooms because they find these predators, these sex offenders and rapists, they find home in these programs because they know they're safe in these programs. Don't worry about having sex with some of these people. Don't worry about falling into these people. Just don't get into a relationship, and it's only suggested. This program is a joke, people. It's an absolute joke. It's pre-K level education to an epidemic that is literally killing people. For the people that say, for the people that told me, don't worry, this program is going to shut you up, my response to that is, you have a better chance of getting someone sober than doing that. But I hope this message spreads, and I really do truly hope people look more into this program. Like I said, don't just take my word for it. That's defeating the purpose of this. Look into this cult. Look into the crimes that surround this cult. And you'll see what the real problem of addiction is. Thank you.